I'm going to ask you to take a leap with me today, and maybe even a pretty big one, depending on where you're coming from when it comes to aligning your physical body. So I want to talk to you about redefining the way that we experience our bodies and the choices that we make about them in a very different way, frankly, in a very holistic way. So I'm talking about the food we eat or don't eat, the exercise we do or we don't do, the doctors we choose or the interventions we choose or don't choose, the health programs we follow or don't follow, the supplements we take or don't take. I want to look at that from a different perspective with you that might actually help you achieve the goals that you have related to your health, but in a very different way than what you might be accustomed to. So, what if we could look at all of these things that are related to our bodies in a way that strips away shame, self-disappointment, feeling bad, and instead focuses on aligning the physical layer so it can truly support the other layers of our beings, our mind, our emotion, our energy, our soul, in a way that isn't hyper-focused on a very limited view of health. Because when the physical layer aligns, something really powerful happens. Our health and fitness actually become symptoms of alignment rather than the result of difficult interventions. Let me say that again. Our health and fitness starts to happen naturally because it's a symptom of our alignment. When we're in more alignment, we become more healthy and fit, and not necessarily because of really punishing interventions. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. So stick with me because that is exactly what holistic therapy invites us to consider. So welcome back to the Holistic Therapy Revolution with Beth Miller. And this is where we explore what becomes possible when the layers of our being, our mind, body, emotions, energy, and soul begin working together in harmony, in alignment, instead of competing with one another. And also where we are focused on aligning mind, body, and soul when talk therapy is not enough. So in our last episode, we talked about alignment and what it means and why therapy that focuses on alignment as its central goal becomes much more transformative. And why therapy that focuses solely on cognition and on the mind often leaves people feeling stuck. And today we're going to go deeper into that physical layer, but in a way that you might not have considered, because we're going to talk about it through the lens of life, force, energy. So life force energy is considered to be the energy that flows through all living things. When you think about it, you step back, you're like, yeah, I guess there is like a life force or an energy that is flowing through everything, right? That makes sense. It keeps us alive, yes. But it also shapes how we experience life, how resilient we feel, how clear we think, how deeply we connect, how much energy we have for all of the aspects of life. Now, ancient healing traditions seem to have always understood this. And in Ayurveda, life force energy is called prana. It's the energy that nourishes and sustains the body. And in Chinese medicine, it's known as qi, which is believed to be the very foundation of health and vitality. And many Western modalities of healing, Reiki, acupuncture, energy healing, EFT, are also rooted in supporting the energetic flow within a person and recognizing that when it's distressed, the energetic flow, or when it's crimped or drained, that it impacts everything. There's an awareness of that. So those different modalities, Western modalities, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, it's different language, but it's the same wisdom at the heart of it. And when this energy flows freely within us, this life force is flowing freely, we feel vibrant, clear, resilient, alive. You know what I mean. You felt it before. But when it feels blocked or depleted, either for a long time or even just temporarily, we feel foggy, exhausted, unmotivated, disconnected, So surely there must be something to this life force energy. And so the question becomes, what if the goal isn't just to quote unquote be healthy, which often means be thin or look healthy, but we'll get to that in a minute. What if the goal isn't just to be healthy, but to increase the energy that makes health possible? Let me repeat that. What if the goal isn't just to be healthy, but to increase the energy that makes health possible? All right, so here's the problem with what we've been taught about how to view the body so far, at least in our Western culture where I'm living and breathing every day today. So most of us were conditioned to evaluate our bodies through our appearance. I live in the same world that you do. I understand how important appearance can be, and for some probably very good biological and primitive reasons, and probably for some other manipulative, superficial reasons. But here we are, right? We're in a culture that appearance is pretty important to us. But when it comes to our physical body, we've got a couple of challenges here, because in our culture, thin equals healthy. And weight becomes the scoreboard for health. And this formula is not only simplistic, but it is often wildly inaccurate. So someone can look healthy and be severely malnourished or inflamed or chronically stressed or even depleted, whereas somebody else might not fit society's visual ideal of weight. Yet they could be metabolically strong, they could be well nourished, they could be emotionally regulated, they could be energetically vibrant. So holistic therapy, because we're focusing on all of the layers of the being and how they work together, invites a much more intelligent question about our physical body, which is not, does this have too many calories? Will it make me fat? Or if I exercise only 2 days this week, will I gain weight? But instead it asks this question, does what I'm doing right now increase my life force energy or deplete it? Does whatever I'm doing right now in my physical body or for my physical body, does it increase my life force energy or deplete it? It is not a question of, is this good or bad? Is this food good or bad? Is this exercise good enough? Am I being disciplined enough? Did I mess up? Am I a bad person because I ate this? I was bad today because I ate that. It's not about, I need to exercise 5 days a week because that's how I will be attractive to others. I'm not saying not to care about that. If that matters to you, that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to aligning our physical layer, we are starting to consider removing the superficiality, the inaccurate formula that really doesn't translate into aligning our well-being. It translates into, let's say, being thin or being pretty or looking a certain way for others that may not actually create sustainable wellness. Now, shame has never been a great sustainable wellness strategy. It's typically very good at temporary change, but nothing that lasts. However, alignment is. Alignment is a great strategy for helping ourselves to continuously become more well in our bodies through our life force energy, through the increase of our life force energy. So, when I talk about shifting the judgment, the disappointment, the shame that we feel around what we do or do not do with our physical bodies, I really mean this in a very big and encompassing way. Most of us have a lot of charge and a lot of feelings about our bodies and about the choices that we make that either seem to serve us or not serve us, but we're evaluating that from the wrong perspective. I'm offering that idea that I say it's wrong because it's not working for us. It does not seem to actually be serving our well-being. We're not becoming more well, though sometimes we may become more thin, but that may not be sustainable either. And it comes with emotional costs that we keep paying that in fact makes it harder to keep those behaviors up sustainably. So what I'm suggesting is that if we just eliminate from our behaviors the idea of good or bad, or that one food program is the right way and another food program is the wrong way, or that you have to do this or that to exercise, but instead we ask this: how aligned does my physical layer feel? What would bring me into greater alignment? What choices increase my life force? What choices drain my life force? This moves us from judgment and goes into awareness. The holistic perspective is one of awareness, not judgment, not in punishment, but instead partnership with the body, alignment with it, harmony with it. So it makes me think about many, many clients that I've worked with over the years, and one pops to mind of somebody that has a really difficult relationship with food and also a difficult relationship with their body. And very often they will not eat any food up until about 3 p.m. And they'll drink a lot of coffee and no water. Now, some people do intermittent fasting, and that might be a great fit for them. This particular person, it's not a great fit, and it's not a strategy that she's consciously using for intermittent fasting. And there's also some research, like Kelly Sims on the Andrew Lab podcast talks about how intermittent fasting very often isn't great for women because of their cortisol levels in the morning. But for some people, that might be a great fit. And if it is, wonderful, keep it. But if what you're doing right now is not working, meaning the way that you're talking to yourself, talking to your body, counting calories, thinking about your macros, thinking about your exercise in a way that feels forced or not organic or not positive for you, then lean in, because this strategy might actually get you much better results. So this particular client doesn't really eat up until mid-afternoon or later afternoon. And the way I found out about this is because they were experiencing a tremendous amount of irritability and anger. And so one of the questions, or a series of questions I'm going to ask, is about what's happening in the physical body. I'm not going to just ask what's going on in your mind. I'm not going to just ask what's happening in your life. Those things are important. But because I'm a holistic therapist, I'm going to ask about what's happening in her physical body. And what I found out is that she doesn't eat for a good portion of the day up until the mid-afternoon. And that she's doing that because of the difficult relationship she has with calories, food, preparing food, and how she feels about her body. So when we talk about that from the perspective of restricting or about calories, that's very difficult for people, and understandably, because they may have tried to make a change in the past to overcome this, but perhaps have had limited success. A lot of times when people try to lose weight in multiple ways, they feel defeated over time, and they feel defeated, so they try things that are more extreme, although I'm not suggesting that's just what eating disorders are about. That's sort of a separate conversation. However, what was happening is that she was becoming so anxious, so angry, so irritable that she was blowing up at work. Now, if we talk about this in therapy through a life force perspective, life force energy, it would change the relationship with the food. So we might ask, does this choice of not eating up until 3 o'clock in the afternoon give you life force energy? No. Does this not eating any food up until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, does this deplete your energy or give you energy? It depletes my energy. Tell me how so. Well, I don't have energy to go for a walk during lunch. I'm more irritable. It's harder for me to get a lot of work done because I feel so drained. I don't want to do much. It's hard for me to have, in-depth conversations because I just want people to leave me alone. Okay. So this strategy is not working from a life force perspective. And so if I ask them, what would give you more life force? What would increase your life force? Well, probably if I had a glass of water in the morning, probably if I, just even ate just an egg or a piece of fruit or a little bit of tofu or a handful of nuts. Even if I don't want to eat too much in the morning, eating something would probably even out my blood sugars, but also it would make me feel more energized. And so we might come at a better solution for this client by talking about it through life force, what's draining it, and what helps it to increase, versus through the traditional dogmatic paradigms of calories and carbs and macros and exercise, because a lot of times clients have already had a difficult and failed experience with that. Now, in addition to this, very often I find out when I'm exploring the anxiety and depression that a client has that they're dehydrated. And what they don't know is that dehydration is proven in research studies to vastly increase anxiety and depression. In fact, there was a research study where they gave people water, and then after a period of time, they took it away, and then they gave it again. And what they saw is this direct correlation between the research participant being hydrated and their anxiety and depression going down. And then when they became dehydrated, their anxiety and depression went up. Now, clients are not going to know that, but holistic therapists know that. And a holistic therapist might be able to help a client to reduce their anxiety, depression pretty quickly or make an impact on it just through hydration. Or how about this? So let's say a client has a lot of worry and anxiety. Okay, that's probably very typical for many clients out there, or very many people, many listeners. And that person that has worry and anxiety, let's say they also have sleep problems or fibromyalgia or cravings for carbs or heart problems. Now, here's the thing. Through a little bit of question asking and investigation, you might suspect that this client has low serotonin, because some of these characteristics together or symptoms could be indications of low serotonin. Now, how do we treat low serotonin? Because the client may not know that that's low serotonin. They might just say, I'm just depressed. But a holistic therapist knows to ask questions about food and exercise and supplements and what's happening in the person's whole physical body. And a holistic therapist may ask them to do some research about what are some of the amino acids and the supplements that you can take in order to be able to naturally produce more serotonin, which are usually 5-HTP, tryptophan, St. John's wort. And a holistic therapist may also be able to suggest to a client some foods that they could start eating in order to be able to increase serotonin levels. Eggs, turkey, mangoes, walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds. And might also suggest foods that would actually, if we reduce them, that they might retain more serotonin, because alcohol, aspartame, coffee, trans fats reduce serotonin levels. Now, holistic therapists know to look at it through that physical angle, not just worry and anxiety and what's happening in the person's mind, but collectively for the whole physical perspective as well, because of how that affects their emotions and their mind, therefore their energy and their soul, right? So when we're looking at it from a place of life force, how much life force does the person have? What is draining their life force? What's increasing their life force? We're taking all of that judgment, the disappointment, the failed experiments, the failed programs out, and we just start focusing on life force. When we focus on life force, what ends up happening is the person very often will become healthier and more fit as a result, because life force is their compass. If they're doing more things that increase their life force and they're reducing the things that deplete it, then what might happen is that they just, as a symptom, become more fit, lose weight, become healthier as a result. So I was asked recently by a group of therapists that I was training, what is one of my number one tools that I personally use to beat procrastination? This was an interesting question. We asked everybody in the group just as a kind of like a fun opener. And my answer was exercise. And of course, people looked a little quizzical in the room. How is exercise what I use in order to help manage procrastination? Well, here's why. When I exercise, it gives me more life force. I know that exercising 5 days a week gives me more life force energy. If I have more life force, I not only have more energy to do tasks that I want to do, but I have more energy to do tasks I don't want to do. And I have more excessive energy to push through the tasks that I would possibly want to procrastinate. Now, does that mean I never procrastinate? Of course not. But I tie exercise to my ability to get things done and to not procrastinate because of life force. And so things that we do on the physical layer are dramatically influencing our behaviors, our mind, our emotions, our energy, and our soul because of the life force that it brings to those things. So what are some of the things that actually influence our life force energy? Well, most people realize that things like the quality and frequency of the food that we eat, hydration, movement, sleep, our thoughts, emotional environment that we're in, or time in nature, that's a huge one. Spiritual practices, the people we surround ourselves with. As a matter of fact, related to walking and time in nature, there was one study I read that a 10-minute walk might produce as much impact on anxiety and depression as 45 minutes of working out. So if you don't want to do 45 minutes of working out, but you are willing to do a 10-minute walk, you might get the same impact on your anxiety and depression. And guess what? That's then going to domino into greater health in your life, even though it's only the 10 minutes of walking. That might have such an impact on your alignment that your body becomes more fit, that you possibly lose more weight. Perhaps not the same as working out for 45 minutes, but perhaps the same, because you're becoming more aligned in all ways. Now, add into that, if you could do that exercise or that walking outside, some studies have shown that green bathing and taking walks outside have duplicated the impact of psychotropic medications on anxiety and depression. So, the physical layer is powerful in how it affects the rest of our being. But alignment is never about perfection. It is about direction. It's about constantly touching into more and more alignment. So we're asking the question, what will bring me into alignment? What increases my life force energy? Because those two work in tandem. I'd like you to think of your life force like a garden hose, where when you're depleted, it is crimped and only a little trickle gets through. But when you're aligned, the hose opens, your energy flows, and suddenly you have more capacity for healing, for creativity, for intuition, for focus, for emotional stability, for helping others, for becoming who you're meant to be. Because alignment doesn't have to just improve how you feel. It expands what your life can hold. It expands what you're capable of. Now, here's why this matters beyond just the physical layer. When your life force increases, every other layer of your being benefits. Your mind becomes clearer, your emotions become more regulated, your intuition stronger, your soul easier to hear or connect with. And this is why holistic therapy is never just about one part of us. It's not just about the mind. It's not just about the body. It's about creating internal cooperation and harmony across all of the layers. Because thriving is not built on one strong layer. It is built on the alignment between them. So today I want to leave you with a little experiment. Before making a choice today, this is your one action step to take from this that could make a huge difference today, tomorrow, in your week until we meet again. Before making a choice, pause and ask yourself, will this increase my life force or decrease it? Will this increase my life force or decrease it? This might be whether you're saying yes to going out on Friday night. It might be whether you're saying yes to a second helping of dessert. It might be whether you're choosing to have coffee and not eat any food. Whatever it might be, with no judgment, just ask yourself, will this increase my life force or decrease it? Not perfectly, just honestly. And then notice what begins to shift in you. Because the moment you start partnering with your body instead of battling with it, alignment begins. And when alignment begins, healing and thriving accelerates. Energy rises. Life expands. Next time, we're going to continue exploring how our layers work together and how alignment becomes the foundation for not just healing, but for thriving. And I'm going to give you very practical things that you can do every time to start using these tools in your life or with your clients immediately. Until then, Take good care of your life force because it's everything. And remember that your body was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to support the fullest expression of your life. And I will see you next time on the Holistic Therapy Revolution.